Dhamma, a short introduction for Dr. Punna Wong, will be sharing on the topic Dhamma, work and social life. Where do these lines meet? Dr. Wong graduated from with an MBBS from University of Malaya, MRCP from UK, AM from Malaysia, FRCP from Glasgow, and associate professor. He's currently the associate professor in internal medicine at the Monash University, Malaysia, based in Johor Bahru. Dr. Wong was a visiting lecturer at his alma mater in 1988 to 1989. He joined Monash University, Malaysia in February 2007 to form the pioneer faculty of the clinical school in Johor Bahru. He's currently working as a physician and teaching medical students and doctors in Johor since 1990. He teaches a regular weekly Dhamma class at the Metta Lodge Buddhist Center in Johor Bahru since 2004. Dr. Wong now divides his time equally between his clinical work and his teaching commitments to both the medical school and the Buddhist community. He has been sharing the Dhamma in Johor Bahru, Singapore, and regionally for the past 1.5 decades. Dr. Wong is invited speaker at the 3rd, 7th, and 8th global conferences on Buddhism in Sekiang, Malacca. So we pass to Dr. Wong for the sharing. The talk will take about 1.5 hours until we'll finish by about 11 o'clock. And if you have any questions, kindly post in the chat group here, where we will also be fielding questions from another 5 Buddhist organizations. So Dr. Wong will try to answer the questions from here. I'll read out the questions for Dr. Wong for him to pick up. Okay, so over to you, Dr. Wong.
Good morning, Namo Buddhaya, to all the brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Thank you very much to Brother Bobby, who arranged to invite me to share at Buddhist Jam Fellowship. And I would like to say good morning to everyone who is watching in now, either on Zoom or on Facebook Live. We are sharing today with regards to practicing the Buddha Dhamma in our work lives and in our social lives. And I think that it's important for us to realize that first and foremost, the Buddha is not a person to be worshipped. The Buddha is actually a mind state for us to attain or to become or to evolve to. Now, first and foremost, whatever our social status, whatever our backgrounds, culture, age, gender, everybody seeks happiness. Everybody dislikes suffering. Hence, if you look at it realistically, our lives is an endless pursuit of happiness, either achieved through our work, our achievements in our career, or in our social lives. But the reality is that we are all regularly experiencing stress, suffering, and the sway of disturbing emotions. No matter what level of attainment we have in our work or how active our social lives are, we still inevitably will experience such negative emotions. And this is why we need the Dhamma. This is why we need this Dhamma to help us overcome these negative emotions and be happy people. First and foremost, what distinguishes the Buddha's teachings is his employment of human intelligence. It basically is a psychology of the mind, and it deals with our disturbing emotions using techniques established by the Buddha 2,600 years ago, which are only now, recently in the last 20 years, being used in modern medicine to deal with disturbing emotions. So it is really the training of our minds to be rational, training of our minds to be calm versus our emotional minds, which reacts in a knee-jerk manner to our surroundings. So labels are actually unimportant. Now, very often when you go to a Buddhist center, you will see a huge cupboard full of books, which we call the Tipitaka. The older centers will have the PTS version, which is a voluminous number of books. But the newer centers might have Bhikkhu Bodhi, Maurice Welsh versions, which is now relatively smaller. And these cupboards are usually locked. People walk past in hushed reverence. I don't know, maybe some people even pay respect to it. But we forget that the Dhamma is a boat, is a raft to be used. The Dhamma is not to be worshipped, not to be kept in a cupboard. The Dhamma, be it in whatever form you want to label it, is to be utilized in our daily lives. So whether I call myself Theravada, Mahayana, Vrajayana, is really unimportant. It's how I utilize the Buddha Dhamma that is important. So labels are actually quite unimportant. What is important is using the Buddha Dhamma in our daily lives. Now, work, of course, is something none of us can escape. Right livelihood in the various philosophies and religions, Buddhism stands apart. Because in the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha actually put right livelihood as one of the 8 steps. Livelihood is spiritual practice. Livelihood is part of the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, when we say, oh, I'm aware, yes, the Noble Eightfold Path is right view, right thoughts, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes familiarity with it makes us actually forget how important each of these steps are. And I find it amazing that right livelihood is actually one of the 8 steps. So simply put, if we practice right livelihood, helping people, not harming people, doing our best, we are actually practicing the Buddha Dhamma. Now, most of us spend more of our waking time at work than anywhere else. Now, of course, with COVID-19, many of us work from home. But nonetheless, we still are spending a lot of time doing work. In fact, we spend more time and energy dealing with co-workers, bosses, in my case, my students, my colleagues, than with my own children. I was just sharing with Datuk Seri that I had not seen my children for at least half a year because of COVID-19. So we actually spend much more time dealing with co-workers, colleagues, and in my case, students. So in that sense, actually our work or the nature of our work has become our identity. And even our social circle very often will revolve around our co-workers, our clients, and our bosses. So work and social life helps us to build satisfaction if we accomplish something. And hopefully it also helps us to find purpose and meaning in life. Now, to seek awakening, our career, i.e. our livelihood, and who we engage in our social life are very important aspects. For example, the Buddha had made it very clear that Kalyana Mitas, or noble spiritual friends, is our entire spiritual life. Their impact on our development, on our psychic, is so important that we better choose our friends very carefully. So both work and social encounters are places where we face the fundamental truths of life. Things are frustrating. No matter how good they may appear at this point in time, they change. Everything is interconnected and everything is impermanent. The universal characteristics of impermanence, dissatisfactoriness, and not self is seen in all circumstances. Now, our work forms the bulk of our daily lives as noted. But if we have appropriate work, if we can find appropriate work, and if it is right livelihood, it can reflect your values and aspirations. I tell my students, for example, who are training to be medical doctors, that your work can be very, very useful to society, to individuals, to family. It can reflect your altruism. It can reflect your values of benevolence and compassion and your aspiration to be a good person. But this can also be seen in most other occupations. Hence, work can in fact be a means of self-development. And of course, as noted, it should be a part of our spiritual practice as well. However, the realities in life is that our job may be something we love doing or not. Some of us may be stuck in jobs that we do not particularly like, but we have to earn a living, and so we stick on with it. Many of us are stuck in jobs which we actually can see are serving or helping humanity in one way or other. But there are also people who are stuck in jobs that they see themselves as not contributing to society. And people may admire us for our profession, or people may not. So does this matter to Buddhist practice? Since Buddhist practice is a 24-hour thing, it does matter. Because we are working not just to get paid, but ideally we are also working to advance spiritually. And ideally there should not be a break in our mind between our careers, our social life, and our spiritual practice. Now, very often people go to centers, to temples, and they're very well behaved. They take the precepts, they take the refuge. But as soon as they leave the gates of the temple, they become another person. So we always say, you must not look at it as two separate things. The temple and your life. The temple is your life. The temple and your body is the temple. So there should be no separation. And if we can look at it that way, you will also realize that our jobs should be part of our spiritual practice. The same with our social lives. So the Buddha's teaching of right livelihood basically means in modern English, an ethical livelihood. Now, as lay people, we all hope to live a long, happy, and dignified life with wealth obtained through rightful means. Now, there is nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. The Buddha, in fact, defined it as righteous wealth, rightfully, righteously earned through the strength of your arm, the sweat of your brow, without breaking the 5 precepts. In the Dhammapada, it is likened to a bee that collects honey from the flower. It does not harm the flower. In fact, it helps in pollination. So apparently, if all the bees in this world are to disappear, mankind too will disappear, for we will have no food left to eat. So in the Dhammapada, our ethical livelihood or righteous livelihood or right livelihood is akin to a bee that goes around collecting honey from the flower without harming it and spreading its pollen to help propagate the species. So right livelihood should be respectable, honorable, and most of all, harmless. We talked about the Buddha Dhamma in our work. I think that the very first take-home message is that as far as the application of the Buddha Dhamma in our work is concerned, we have to realize that whatever the nature of our work, it should be honorable and most of all, harmless. If it can be helpful, if it contributes to society, even better. Now, 2 people could be doing the same job, but if one performs the work honestly and the other dishonestly, only the first is practicing right livelihood. Remember, the Buddha's definition of righteous wealth is wealth righteously earned by the sweat of your brow and the strength of your arms without breaking the 5 precepts. So the question of whether our work is wholesome or unwholesome is basically determined by the outcome of what we do. In the Buddha Dhamma, of course, 2,600 years ago were listed 5 traits that a student of the Buddha Dhamma should avoid, because generally they cause pain, they cause suffering, they cause hurt. I think in the 21st century now, this list would be even longer than what was given 2,600 years ago. But if it is a job which causes suffering to people, if it is a job that involves breaking the 5 precepts, then we got to honestly evaluate whether we are having right livelihood or whether our means of livelihood is making our spiritual path even more difficult. So with what intention is the activity involved in our social activities and our work done? Now, right thoughts, as you know, falls into 3 broad classifications. It first must be harmless, or ahimsa. Then we also speak of renunciation in right thoughts. In this context, we are not talking about renunciation to be a monk or a nun, but in this sense, our job may not just be for money. Sometimes we work because it is for the good of our community and our students and our society. I think that the vast majority of the volunteers working at BGF are all unpaid, other than the one person who is keeping the place clean and keeping the place safe. I think the vast majority are working there not for money, but for the good of society and community. And it becomes a service. It's benevolence. Dana is not just the dana of money, but the dana of our skill, our time, our knowledge. Now, in the very first teaching of the Buddha, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he made it very clear that both self-indulgence and self-mortification are useless in the spiritual path. They do not, in the end, lead to happiness. We follow Majjhima Patipata. We follow the middle path. Now, when we talk about practicing, the main key in practicing in lay life is the utilization of mindfulness in all our daily activities. Hence, in becoming a mindful worker, we use the Buddha's wisdom or applying the Dhamma when we mindfully choose our livelihood. If we have that luxury, that is fantastic. And we be a good employer or employee and be successful doing it. In cultivating mindful work relationships, we make working with other people, including our bosses, co-workers, employees, difficult people, customers, in my context, students, happy. And we can achieve this by creating a mindful workplace using the 4 Brahma Viharas in both human resource and organization problems. Unconditional love, as in metta, compassion, as in karuna, rejoicing in each other's successes in mudita, and equanimity for things that are beyond our control. These are very useful mental states that we can apply in all forms of interpersonal contact. In mindful social engagements, we utilize the Buddha's Dhamma when we mindfully choose the type of social activities to participate in. And obviously, in line with the Noble Eightfold Path, in line with Sila. And for us as lay people, the 5 basic precepts. We cultivate mindful social relationships, ensuring that these activities are healthy, happy, and hopefully spiritually helpful, promoting values that we all treasure. And we create mindful social events using the 4 Brahma Viharas. Now, in the Sigalovada Sutta, which most of us are familiar with, the Buddha actually tells us and describes to us the sort of friends that may be helpful to us and the sort of friends that may be very dangerous to us. And here, broadly classified are 4 types of friends that will be very useful to us in our daily lives, in our daily interaction. And he puts it as 4 main groups under helper, a friend who helps you, protects you, all right? An enduring friend, guards your secrets, not abandon you in misfortune, a mentor, helping you, guiding you, encouraging you in the Noble Eightfold Path, and a compassionate friend who, when you are in problems, will help you, who will encourage you, and who will in fact protect you. So these are very broad categories, and basically you can see that all these friends are helping you move in a wholesome direction. And Kayana meters are very important because they encourage us on the spiritual path. They encourage us to stay on the spiritual path. They encourage us to keep to our precepts. They do not tempt us with activities which are unhelpful or harmful. In fact, there are social activities which the Buddha listed that we should avoid. Now, these 6 ways of activities which really will squander our wealth, and I'm sure everyone in the audience has a relative or a friend who went through such difficult times, would be a friend or ourselves or a relative who ends up intoxicated by drugs or alcohol. As all of us look back in our lives, especially at our teenage years, if we had just taken 1 step wrong in the many dichotomies that we face, experimented with drugs, for example, we would have a very different outcome. Roaming the streets at inappropriate times, lepak, today's modern language, habitual partying, compulsive gambling, bad companionship, and laziness. It is interesting, I tell my students, they come to me in year 3 and then they stay with me in year 4 and year 5. But in year 3, they come to me, the first time they do clinical medicine. And they are far away from home, first time they're in Johor Bahru, the southernmost tip of the Asian main continent. They are away from their parents, and there are 120 of them. They are 21 years old. Big birthday celebration at 21, coming of age. There are only 52 weeks in a year, I tell them. There are 120 students. On the average, there are 2 birthday celebrations a week. On the average, there are 2 parties a week. So is there any time left to study? Is there any time left to do other wholesome activities? Unless the student is very disciplined. There isn't. So I think that these advice gave by the Buddha 2,600 years ago is still very applicable today. We have even more drugs now to intoxicate one's mind. We got even more malls for roaming. And of course, endless parties. We've got legal casinos now. And of course, all these will lead not only to the end of wealth, but possibly even to the end of family and career. This is a nice slide I found on the internet, which puts it to modern contemporary English. Friends that you must avoid, like COVID-19. The leech who appropriates your possessions, the bullshitter who manipulates you, the bootlicker who flatters you, and the party animal who encourages you to do the same. Using modern language. What is our attitude? This is a sutta that I love very much. I've shared this many a times. There was this venerable Punna who approached the Buddha and asked the Buddha for a brief instruction. And the Buddha gave him a teaching. We are so lucky now we can have Buddha's teaching every day. Just switch on the internet and link onto a meeting, hook onto a meeting somewhere. But 2,600 years ago, those who study the Buddha Dhamma might have the opportunity to meet the Buddha once, twice a year, and the Buddha has then left and gone on to another place, and it'll be a long time. So you will see a very standard text at the beginning of many suttas in which either the venerable or the layperson will approach the Buddha and ask for brief instruction, after which I would go, contemplate, meditate, etc. And so this was given to the Venerable Punna. And then the Buddha asked him, now that I've instructed you, where are you going to go? Where are you going to live? And the Venerable Punna replied, Lord, there's a country called Sunaparanta. I'm going to live there. Well, you might say Johor Bahru in this case. And the Buddha said, Punna, the Sunaparanta people are fierce, they are rough. If they insult and ridicule you, what will you think? And he replied, if they insult and ridicule me, I will think these Sunaparanta people are civilized, very civilized, in that they don't hit me with their hands. That is what I will think, O Blessed One. And then it goes on. The Buddha said, what if they hit you with their hands? And then he replies, I will think that they are very civilized in that they don't hit me with a cloth. And the Buddha said, what if they hit you with a cloth? And then he's replied, or think that they are very civilized in that they don't hit me with a stick. And it goes on, what if they hit you with a stick? And he still insists, I will think that they are very civilized in that they don't hit me with a knife. Here you see the Venerable Punna has a very positive outlook. He sees the good. He doesn't emphasize the not so good parts. And he has a very positive attitude. And of course, the story goes on that he actually did go to Sunaparanta. He shared the Buddha Dhamma there and was very successful. And these people later on actually came back to visit the Buddha and informed the Buddha that the Venerable Punna had since passed away. And the Buddha informed them that he had passed away as an arahant. So this sutta tells us a very nice lesson with regards to our attitudes. Because very often in life, it's going to be like that. I have friends who had sacrificed much and yet rewarded with disappointment. Friends who have done huge amount of contributions and go unrecognized. So if you look at this sutta, they can still go on very happily with life because they still see only the wholesome ones. And in fact, that is what they are doing. Sadhu to them. So the beauty of the Buddha's teachings is how they always return our attention to our minds, our attitude, how we deal with our emotions. And hence you can follow the path of awakening. No matter what anyone else around us is doing, people may not accept you, people may love you, people may praise you, people may blame you, but nevertheless, whatever the circumstance, you can always still follow the path of awakening. And our awakening and growth is not contingent on others. Now, another beautiful teaching, of course, is the teaching of karma. And the Buddhist teaching of karma is, of course, radically different from what is pre-existent at his time. Certainly, karma is not fate or predestination. The Buddha clearly rejected that. Certainly, karma is not something divinely ordained. The Buddha also rejected that. And certainly, it is also not due to random chance. It is due to cause, conditions, and effect. So the Buddha basically has realized and brought to our attention that karma, that big word for which there is so much misconception, is basically our intentional actions resulting in effects. And it lies solely in our hands, and we are always changing our karma. We get what you're willing to put into it. We own the problem, we also own the solution. And we create our future through our thinking, our decisions, our actions, our attitude. Now, this little comic strip is another one that I love. It shows a couple of retirees, like me and my wife, and all the gang that we joined Datuk series trips, retirees. And here the wife tells the husband, "Al, have you ever heard of the 10 most powerful two-letter words?" Al, as usual, titapa attitude. Nope, it doesn't ring a bell. And the wife says, "If it is to be, it is up to me." Now, this is seriously very profound. Not only does he like it, I like it too. If it is to be, it is up to us. We create our future. We define our future. So our work and our social activities must become our spiritual practice. We cannot separate it. And Buddhist spiritual practice comes down to mindfulness and actions. I had always said metta is not a virtue to be worshipped or chanted or recited like a mantra. Metta is a verb. It has to be done. So be it in our work life or in our social activities, the utilization of the 4 Brahma Viharas as verbs, loving kindness, compassion, rejoicing in each other's achievements, and equanimity must be what we utilize every day in our work. That becomes our actions. Now, all work and social engagements is practice via wholesome thoughts and actions. And when we take even the most mundane task with the attitude of spiritual pursuit, work and spirituality is one. Now, you can even tell the difference between, for example, a mother or a wife who cleans the house and a paid maid who comes and cleans the house, because the attitude is different. The mother cleans that house with loving kindness, with great dedication. The maid just does the job, full stop. Grandmother cooks a meal, almost like a spiritual pursuit. You go to a restaurant, it's just a meal, and you can even taste the difference. So all our work and social engagement is practice. And these are my collection of t-shirts, which I try to tell my students, because I tell them every time I ask you questions, this is your answer. And of course, they all have a good laugh. But this is the attitude that we must try to avoid. I don't know, I don't care, I do nothing. And of course, even worse, just laugh it off, ha, ha, ha. Those of you who are my students now locked on, I hope you're aware of this. So you can be a street food vendor, serving food to people passing by and practicing the 4 Brahma Viharas in work and service, and be well on the way to awakening. Now, such a person selling street food has right livelihood. He's doing his work with metta, karuna. He is keeping his precepts. While another person in a very powerful seat involving corrupt and greedy acts is certainly not doing right livelihood. Now, when we walk this path, we may actually realize that we may be in a career which is not suitable. But personal and family responsibilities, of course, may not allow an immediate change. And sometimes take the time, patience, and opportunity, have the right aspiration, and voila, you may actually have the opportunity to change. Let me give you an example. Many, many years ago, there was a friend, and he was in a trade which sells live fish. So he sells live fish to restaurants, etc., etc. And he became a very good student of the Buddha Dhamma, and he felt that what he's doing is not exactly correct. So we chit-chatted, we discussed, and I think that the most important thing here is, what is that effect on his mind? If the effect of his mind is that it is disturbing and it is something he feels guilty about all the time, Then yes, I said, perhaps you should look for another job, which is what he subsequently did. And very recently, there was another friend who is a business person. And of course, now with COVID-19, times are difficult. And so he thought of expanding business to another field that hopefully may help him secure a better income. And someone was asking him to invest in animal farms because no matter how bad, you still need to eat. You know, he was a bit in a conflicted state, and he phoned me up to discuss. So basically, my main question was again the same. I said that the fact that you had to call me up to discuss means that you already feel that there is not something that you think is what you want. There is a conflict. You do not feel too happy. That's why you need to discuss. And so I say, I can't give you the answer, but I can give you questions. And those questions are like what I raised. Doing this job, do you feel happy, unhappy? Do you feel conflict? Do you feel guilty? If you do, then you yourself have answered that question. And so he decided not to invest. So we all have to individually make a very searching and fearless moral inventory of our thoughts, our words, our deeds. And the question I ask myself, you ask yourself, all of us ask ourselves, is, are we making our workplace a better place? Or is our activities, our social engagement making us a worse person? So if our activities, it may not even be work, it could be just a communal activity that you are doing, and you realize that it is making you a worse person in the sense that now you have very unwholesome thoughts, then something is wrong. Ajahn Brahmali was in Johor Bahru at the beginning of this year. And we all took the 5 precepts as usual at the beginning. And then we discussed, it was a question and answer session about wholesome thoughts, wholesome activities. And Ajahn Brahmali asked us in the audience, how many of you here can very honestly answer that you do not have unwholesome thoughts coming up to consciousness, or very little unwholesome thoughts coming up to consciousness? All right? So if your work, your activity, your communal activity is making you a better person, in BGF, for example, you find that with your involvement there, now you have actually less and less unwholesome thoughts. Your thoughts are basically in tune with the Eightfold Path and the 5 precepts. Fantastic. Please carry on. Or are you involved in an activity or an organization in which your participation is making you actually a worse person? You feel like strangling another person most of the time when you are there. And in which case, I think that a battle like this is best won in losing. This is a battle, it's not a war. Some battles are won in losing. And walking away may be the best action, because you certainly do not want activities, social or otherwise, that actually makes you a worse person. So as a manager or employer, and I know there are many managers, employers among our audience, wholesome attitudes, if it can be cultivated among those in your charge, will be very good. Positive attitudes, positive thinking among staff, in my case, among my students, lead to success. And happy people tend not to ponting classes or work so much. And it will be good if you are an employer or a manager to always start off with positive activities. You know, the Japanese have a culture, every morning they meet, they sing company song, and of course, some of it is a bit overboard. They shout, we can do it, we can do it, we will achieve our sales today, we will meet our target. It's basically inculcating that mindful state right at the start of work. Here, as a Buddhist, you can inculcate values into the work culture if the situation allows. So you have good leaders, bad leaders. And I look at good leaders as people progressing on the path with lessening of the fetters. Conceit is a big factor, as you all are aware. A good leader is humble, not arrogant. A good leader influence, not dictate or command. A good leader is democratic, not authoritarian. My way or the highway. No, that's not right. A good leader stimulates, not oppress, not self-serving, etc. This is found in any article or search on Google with regards to good leadership. So as a manager or employer, as Brother Huachai goes around teaching people how to improve company, can we also teach them to begin our workday with a spiritual practice? Can we also put a connection between work and spirituality? Can we apply the values of mindfulness, generosity, fairness, and caring for all living beings? Can we create a workplace that supports the staff to practice Buddhism within their work hours? The answer is yes. I was in Jakarta last year, visited a friend who owns a franchise. And he's young. He's, I think, probably early 30s. And so, well, it's a franchise. He sells drinks. And he also is very deeply involved in the youth activities. And he tells all the people in that business network that if you have a person who needs a job or within the youth community who needs a job, please contact me. And so these people join his franchise and they work for him. And he has many outlets all over Jakarta. And he does try his very best to put these values into his franchise. All right. This was my clinic before I retired. And I used to put up paintings like that to inspire my students who are always with me in the clinic. And for patients to realize as they sit there waiting, they inevitably will look around and see these values that we appreciate. Now, icons can be very, very useful. This, believe it or not, is a warehouse in the United Kingdom. It's an organization that has Buddhist leaders, and they put this huge stupa right in the middle of the warehouse to encourage spiritual practice. Because if not, after a while, people will turn to the biggest religion in the world, which is money. Of course, we need to earn money. Nobody is saying we don't need to earn money. But besides earning money, we also need to have a spiritual practice. So icons to me are very important. Brother Dr. Wu of Seremban had asked me many a times why I had so many icons. And the reason is because these icons reminds me of what I ought to do. Now, the problem with icons is that if you leave it there, after a while, it becomes a furniture and we forget, we don't see it anymore. So for it to work, you've got to change the icon every now and then so that it sticks and jumps up into your consciousness and awareness. And t-shirts are fantastic icons. You become a walking advertisement. T-shirts. Proud to be Buddhist. In Buddha we trust. 3 of us was friends in primary school. From primary school, we were friends. We're still friends now. All 3 of us are still in the path. Dato Victor will know Yan Chang well. Those of you in Champaka will know eSun well. And when I'm forced to wear a suit for official purposes, uni events, for example, I still insist on putting an icon. So nobody will offer me wine, alcohol, etc., etc. In fact, they stay away from me because they say so boring. But it's all right. These icons remind us, these icons advertise. Now, wealth. There's nothing wrong, as I said earlier, with being wealthy. In fact, there will be no Buddhist organizations without supporters. The early community of Buddhists were fortunate to have people like King Bimbisara, Anathapindika, Malika. All these people had wealth. They had the financial means to dana for monasteries, food, etc. But wealth alone does not make a complete man or a harmonious society. And often, if one is unguarded, the possession of wealth all too often makes one even more greedy. And unrestrained craving is, of course, bad. Let me just show you a video. Of course, we do not know how true it is, or that's just meant to be fun. But that, of course, is an extreme example of unrestrained craving. Now, money can make us happy to a certain degree, because when you have money, you will have the means to survive, put food on your table, education for your children, etc. And then you have money to buy a little comfort, buy a Mac instead of a PC, buy an external monitor with high definition so that you don't have to strain your eyes, or that be considered as comfort, but a necessary article of work. And then you still have a little bit of extra money to go on a trip with Dato Seri every year or twice a year. But you realize that beyond that, most studies have shown that you're not going to be very much more happy. Overconsumption is not going to give rise to more happiness. And an American study had actually shown that as you earn more money, as you achieve this part, you will reach happiness index of 10, and then after that, it plateaus off. You do not earn more wealth so that can lead to more happiness. Beyond that, you've got to create true purposeful living. Now, the Buddha gave us this concept of balanced living. And he says, he who acquires wealth in harmless way, like the bee that I mentioned just now, riches mount for him like an anthill's rapid growth. And with wealth acquired this way, the lay person will divide his wealth into 4 portions. And for this, 1 portion for his wants. Note, this is beyond needs. 2 portions to be reinvested in business. And the 4th in times of need, emergencies, savings, tires over COVID-19. So these is what we would call balanced living, utilizing money to keep yourself happy and comfortable, for investment and for a rainy day. So the reality is, while money may not make us happy, it gives us freedom from financial worries. And having excess income allows you that luxury that I mentioned earlier, and to be more involved with our family and community. So wealth gives us the time and the resources to do the things that we want to do. And there are people, and I'm going to show you a video of someone that I am quite sure not many of you would have even heard of, whose utilization of his wealth has made such a huge impact.
Lives with his wife in an ordinary rental apartment in the city of San Francisco. He never wears branded clothing. His glasses are trusted and aged, His watches are functional and unglamorous. He does not have his own car. His primary means of transportation is the bus. And the bag he uses for work is an old plastic bag. But surprisingly, over the course of his life, he has donated more than $8 billion to charitable causes. Who is this man? Well, his name is Chuck Feeney. He's frugal with himself, but generous with others. He likes to make money, but does not like to spend it on himself. Through his lifetime, he has contributed $588 million to Cornell University, $125 million to the University of California, and $60 million to Stanford University. Outside of the United States, he spent $1 billion renovating and then building a further 7 new universities in Ireland. Incredibly, he also founded a charity fund aimed at providing cleft-lipped surgery for children in developing countries. More incredibly still, Chuck never sought praise for his many contributions. He admirably never revealed his name in association with each donation, but asked for his donations to be made anonymously. Towards the end of his life, Chuck Feeney's selfless and astounding deeds were revealed by the media. When Chuck eventually did face the press and was asked the inevitable question of, why did you choose to donate all of your wealth to charity? Chuck Feeney simply smiled and said, people are born naked and then finally die alone. And he continued, no one can carry the wealth and reputation that he himself has been striving for a lifetime. A reporter asked Chuck Feeney once more, why did you donate all of your fortunes? Chuck Feeney smiled cheerfully and gave an unbelievable answer, beyond anyone's imagination. Because the corpse cover does not have a bag. Chuck Feeney has set an example for the rich all over the world. Two great American tycoons, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, have attempted to adopt his way of thinking and strive to follow in his actions. Think for the people while enjoying life at the same time. Chuck Feeney.
So we can utilize our wealth in ways which can benefit many people. And in Asia, we too have examples. Those of you who attended the Metta conference that Venerable Mahinda's organization organizes, I think the last one was in KL a year or two ago. Those of you who attended will remember there's a Mahayana monk from Hong Kong who is very active in teaching metta meditation to people right from kindergarten to university level at his temple in Hong Kong. And because I was moderating that and we chit-chatted, and he did not have at all the typical Hong Kong accent in his English, that I was very tempted to ask him, and I did ask. Venerable, I asked, why do you not have that typical Hong Kong accent? And his reply, that's because I'm Malaysian, he said. I'm from Kedah, he said. And the temple that he teaches at is a training center. It does not accept donation from the public. It does not have Hyong Yao, Hyong and all that. In fact, it only is open to a limited number of visitors every day because he doesn't want people walking in and out, taking pictures and disturbing the people who are training in there. So if you wish to visit, you have to make an appointment online and then they allocate a fixed number. Now, not many people are aware that that temple is donated, funded, and sustained by Li Ka-shing.
The 500,000 square feet complex was built with the aim of promoting Buddhism to the general public. You built the monastery in Hong Kong. Why?
我祖上啊，我個祖母啊、祖父啊， 我爸爸媽媽啊，甚至我過身嘅話，佢哋都係信佛教，而我對佛教嘅認識好深。我成日咧認為最緊要係人有信仰。
You believe in Buddhism, but in business, your style is very Western. How do you resolve this?
但係我尊重好多我有認識嘅教，佢哋嘅教統，我都試過教統喺佛教嗰度咧，你會好多問題啊，可以嗰個哲學可以解決有啲人嘅困難。其實咧，香港當然貧窮嘅人係好想咧佛教嗰度嚟解決生老病死啊一切問題。其實唔少有錢嘅人都精神有困擾嘅。生嘅哲學兩句說話，我就古代有8個字對我好有用。嗰個座右銘啊，自強不息，同埋呢嗰個厚德載物。呢個人生真係咁多自強不息嘅，一路唔停嘅。
So brothers and sisters, you can see that there are ways in which you can actually utilize wealth very wholesomely. Again, not many people are aware that that temple is funded by Li Ka-shing. In fact, he donated his entire collection of Buddhist statuary, suttas, because he has spent a whole lifetime collecting them, buying it back from the West, and he has donated it to this temple and put in a museum there. So if you wish to visit, you have to make an appointment online to visit. And I asked my students from Hong Kong who are with me now, and even they are not very aware of this temple because it's not publicized as a tourist spot. It's seriously only for culture. So as I said, righteous wealth, righteously earned, can be utilized in very wholesome way. So money, of course, will get us all these things. This we have to achieve after we have achieved this. This we need to intentionally make aspirations, intentionally create the time to do. And I pay respects to all the Dhamma brothers and sisters in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, who have devoted much of their personal time, effort, energy, creativity for the Buddha Sasana. Now, of course, the temple has moved to the digital sphere, and I can see BGF has very beautiful approaches to its manner of presenting or pedagogy. And I think that that's a very important art now, because how are we going to attract and sustain the attention of our audience is going to be a very important skill. So I conclude that the Dhamma is actually applicable in every aspect of our work and social lives. It's just that we will have to make that intentional effort to say that I will assimilate the Buddha Dhamma into every aspect of my work and social life. And I have tried to share with you the application of the Buddha Dhamma in both the work environment as employer, employee, and the social activities that we can engage in quite wholesomely. And I think by and far, most of us in the circle now on this audience have lots of social activities which involve either cell group activity or house fellowship or just simple meals involving good Dhamma family members. And then we encourage, we inspire each other. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Punna Wong, for your very practical, highly inspiring talk. Like Dr. Punna says, we have to make our work and social life part of our spiritual practice. Our practice is not to be, it's just like Acham Brown always says, our practice involves kindness and mindfulness. So the practice of metta, Brahma Viharas, and teachings. So any questions, kindly post in your chat, in our chat group here. We will pick up for Dr. Wong. Meantime, while waiting for the questions to come in, we have a few more minutes, about 16 minutes. We will like to promote next coming talk will be on the 10th of August, which is a Monday night at 8 p.m. We are having Brother Deepak Anand, who is actually retracing Xuan Chang's route in India by foot. And Brother Deepak has found an amazing discovery, which is the place where the Buddha actually cut his hair after he renounced. So he'll be on the 10th of August. And after that, on the 16th of August, we'll be having another speaker from India, Brother Shantum Seth. He'll be sharing on the way of practice from the Master Thich Nhat Hanh. So that'll be on the 16th of August, is Sunday morning. Okay, so join us on the 10th and the 16th. Maybe while waiting for the talks, let us do a short sharing of merits first. And if there are questions, we will pick it up later. I have prepared a slide for the... Okay. Sharing of merits after Dhamma talks. Let us all recite together. We would like to share the merits we have gathered from today's talk with the Devas. May they rejoice in these merits and bring blessings and protection to the world. Let us recall to mind our departed relatives and friends. Wherever they are, may they be free from suffering and be happy. Let's chant together. Idam me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. May all beings share in these merits we have thus acquired. May these merits bring good health, happiness, and peace. Let us also make some aspirations. May the Buddha guide my thoughts and actions throughout the day. May the Dhamma help me to be strong in moments of weakness, brave in times of trouble, and calm in the face of changing fortunes. May the Sangha inspire me to act with kindness, patience, and forgiveness in my dealings with others, including those unfriendly to me. May the Devas protect my family and me. May I today help someone in need of my love and support. May I not waste this life in useless pursuits, but use it well to bring benefit and happiness to the world. May the Buddha be at my head, the Dhamma in my heart, and the Sangha by my side to guide and protect me always. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dr. Wong, there's a question coming in. In dealing with difficult and angry persons, how do we remain undisturbed and not upset?
Okay. Sister Chai Hun is a dear sister whom I've known for 20, 30 years. Good morning, Chai Hun. Now, there are a few things we have to realize. First, it is not easy. It is not easy because we are unenlightened beings and we still have something called an ego that we have built up almost like a fort. So when somebody is angry, mad, difficult, first and foremost, being unenlightened beings, we feel that our ego is threatened. We feel that our ego is bruised, and our knee-jerk reaction is first and foremost to hit back. That, of course, is probably the worst thing we can do. But as I said, being unenlightened, unfortunately, that is how we are. So the first thing, of course, is to try and awaken to the truth, try and see the concepts of not self. That's one. Secondly is to understand the situation. So Chai-Hoon, of course, I know works very hard in a major corporation. Sometimes her superiors become very mad at her. But Chai-Hoon, you have to remember, when your superior is very mad at you, as the word says, he or she is mad. Now, Ajahn Brahm used to teach us this story to help us overcome this. He said that this man was sent to the market to buy things for the wife. He went to the market, and then there was this man standing there, abusing, scolding, and saying really horrendous things to him. And he was so upset, he left the market and went home and told the wife, I'm not going to buy anything for you. This man that insulted me, blah, 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 blah. And the wife told him, oh, that man, he's been doing that in the market for the last few years. He's a poor thing, you know, he's mad, you know, he's got some psychosis. And he stands there doing that to everybody every day. And of course, the husband realized, oh, you mean he's a madman? Oh dear, so sad for him. And of course, then he went back to the market and managed to do whatever he needs to do without getting upset, because he realized that that man is not himself, that man is mad. So please, Chai-Hoon, when your boss is screaming at you, that man is mad, he's not himself. And if you can think of that, then you say, well, maybe he needs some antipsychotic agents, you know, poor thing. And that makes you feel temporarily better. And of course, the third thing is what is taught in one of the Zen stories that I love personally very much. And that is, this monk was meditating in a boat in the middle of a very peaceful lake. And he was enjoying himself in the bliss of his meditation. Ah, so peaceful. And there he saw another boat moving along. And he said, hey, 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 stop, you're going to knock into me. And that boat actually knocked into him. And he was furious. No respect for the Sangha, no big, no small. Hayyo, how can you do that? And then he realized that there was nobody in the boat. The boat is empty. It was just drifting along. And when he realized that, he started laughing. He said, how foolish of me to be angry and be caught in a situation like that. Well, in real life, isn't that what things are? Things are empty. So while Chai-Hoon, I cannot stop your boss from losing his temper, but I can encourage you to get your boss to attend Dhamma lessons online with Buddhist Jam Fellowship, and maybe he will learn to be a better employer. Wear a lot of icons. You know, I tell my medical students, one of the most important things I tell my medical students, and a few of them I see online, Yunwen, Sini, Edmund, Marcus, I saw them online, they're all my students. And one of the most important things I teach them is when you walk into the ward, make sure you say good morning to at least 3-4 people. To the attendant, to the sister, to the nurse, to anybody. Say good morning and have a nice, big, beautiful smile. And wear a nice Buddhist icon on your neck or something. Now, that puts people, first and foremost, in a wholesome state of mind. That puts people in a friendly sort of manner with you because you are respectful, you are polite, and you have a beautiful smile. You know how difficult it is to scold people when you have a beautiful smile? Sometimes I take you all for ward rounds and you all say the most ridiculous things on earth, and I feel like strangling you, not just scolding you. And I look at that sweet, pretty, innocent face, and you say, I can't do that. So Chai-Hoon, there's another thing you must do. Have a very nice smile when your boss is scolding you, and you will have great difficulty. It's very hard to scold someone who is looking at you and smiling nicely, you know. He might think you are mad, and then he will leave you alone. And of course, have a nice icon. It's very hard to scold someone when he's wearing a nice Buddha image on his neck, and then you're scolding him, he looks disrespectful, and he'll probably stop. So these are the little things that I can suggest to you, Sister Chai-Hoon. maybe it'll help. But I think that the most effective manner is to send your boss to attend online BGF courses. And when he becomes a good student of the Buddha Dhamma, he will probably be more mindful and not lose his temper so much. All right? Hope that helps.
Chai Hun says, treating the person as a bodhisattva, training you.
Yes, nobody says that the perfections are easy to perfect. If not, they will not be called parameters. They will not be called perfections. But yes, well, Thich Nhat Hanh will teach us, look at everyone as a teacher. He is teaching you something. And okay, that's another very good method. Yeah.
A question from Sister Kamping. Sometimes when the situation is bad in the corporate world, it can help if one can send metta and also make aspirations for things to be better. If one is indeed lucky, another job offer may come along.
Yes, that's very
not exactly. Hello, it's not exactly a question. It's sharing an experience. I have done it about 2 or 3 times. It does help.
Yes, that's very true. I think all of us have personal experience with it. I do not know whether it's because the metta changes our attitude or our smile or our work ethics, but I think it certainly does help. And of course, if everybody is doing it, including your boss, that's even better.
Surya Kumar wants to answer questions.
It's not on the chat.
Surya, can you ask the question verbally?
Yeah. Good morning. I'm Surya. I'm Surya, joining from Chennai, India. It's a wonderful session. Gave me a lot of information on how we can handle and use the Dhamma in day-to-day life. And I have a question here, like, is there any sutta which teaches about how a person should handle the money?
Oh, yes. Not a sutta, brother. First, I'm so happy to speak to someone from India. Thank you for attending. Oh, not just a sutta. In fact, there are quite a few suttas which, in which the Buddha mentioned about how we should proportion our money and how we should spend our money. And brother, I think you can easily get it now via Professor Google. Just Google, okay, and you will find it. There are at least, to my mind, 3, if not 4 suttas in which the Buddha did mention about how we should spend our money. Okay, and in fact, you're actually in a very good forum because Datuk Seri gave a lecture on Buddhist economics some time ago. All right, and I'm sure we all still have these resources somewhere in our computer.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you.
No, it's not in this WhatsApp chat. Okay. Hold on, there are some questions in another chat group. Let me pick it up. Okay, the question is it difficult? It is difficult to achieve self-actualization stage unless one is a full-time devotee. Is this correct?
Yes and no. If you are a full-time devotee, of course, you are less distracted by the secular world, but life is in the secular world too. I think that if you can apply the teachings of the Buddha in the secular world, you can apply the teachings of the Buddha in our work, it is just as good. Now, I used to illustrate it like this. The Sangha is like a scholar. The Sangha has a full scholarship, food, lodging, everything provided. So the Sangha doesn't have to worry about lodging, food, medicines, clothing. You and I are not on a full scholarship. You and I have to study and work at the same time. But there are many people who are very successful studying and working. And so it's a matter of first What do we want? What's your aspiration? And while, of course, I will well imagine that the scholar has an advantage over somebody who has to work and study, the person who works and study can also achieve and graduate. Maybe he takes a longer period. Instead of a 3-year university course, he has to spread it out further. But I'm sure that that gap can be narrowed with time. All right?
There's another 2 questions coming in. From Honeybox, how to keep consistent practice and not slacken, having to restart again and again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's a very, very important question. Very good question. I am fortunate in that I live in Johor Bahru, which is a relatively boring town if you compare to Kuala Lumpur. So we have less distractions. And we have a very good community of close Dhamma brothers and sisters. We support each other. Many of them are in fact in the chat right now. And they are also actively involved in sharing the Dhamma themselves. So when you do this, you tend to remain very focused. Now, for many years, since 2004, I started teaching face-to-face in Metta Lodge. Of course, that's gone now with COVID-19, every week. I tell the people who attend that I'm very grateful to them because I actually learn more than them. Because having to teach every week once, I have to prepare. And in preparing, I am forced into a regime of 2 days or 3 days before the class. I will have to look up material, I will have to arrange it, etc., etc. Now, of course, nowadays it's all on the internet, PowerPoint, etc., etc. So I actually learn more. So to keep yourself spiritually motivated, I think it is important as lay people that we are involved in Kayana meter activity. For lack of a better word, we use cell group activity nowadays, but it's basically Kayana meter activities. And these cell group activities, if they are once a month, then at least once a month you're involved. If it's once a week, like my group in JB is very active. They are almost every week, they're involved in something. And I think that the other very, very important way to keep you all the time spiritually engaged on the path is to make sure you marry somebody who is. My wife asks me endless questions every day. So to answer her, I either know it, or if I don't know it, I have to look up for it. So now if you're married to somebody, you naturally never escape. You know, you can be lying on the bed trying to sleep and suddenly, hey, I just remember something, you know, what is this? And that. So I think it's very important. First, have a cell group, have Kayana meters. And for us in Johor Bahru, we have very close relationships with the Dhamma family in Singapore because it's only 1 kilometer away from Singapore. And so we use the resources available on both sides. It's the Sylvia Bay shares regularly. Venerable Ratana Sara is online most of the time, etc., etc., and vice versa. Some of them are online right now, sharing with us. Sharing in this sharing here. So, sister, for you to be constantly motivated and not to be starting from snake and ladder square one all the time is first to have a regime whereby you bracket your day. You bracket your early morning when you wake up with a form of practice, be it a simple salutation or a 5-minute meditation or a 5-minute chanting before you rush off to work. So that starts off your day. And then you end your day with a similar activity, just 5 minutes of whatever sutta you're familiar with or whatever meditation practice you're familiar with. And that brackets it. So your day literally is bracketed by these 2 events. And then what is in between, as long as you have friends, like nowadays with WhatsApp, I think most of us in the Dhamma circle receive at least 3, if not 5 WhatsApp messages with regards to the Dhamma. Brother Hing, every morning, without fail, sends us a Dhamma message to our WhatsApp group. So on the day I do not receive a Dhamma message with Brother Hing, we will have to probably call him and ask him, are you well, are you sick or what? because every morning without fail, he sends us a Dhamma message. Vice versa. Within our little individual chat groups, we are always sharing something interesting, we'll share, and that keeps us all going. So we don't start at snake and ladders, the first square again repeatedly. And these are the luxury of the internet. We are in instant communication now. And my sister-in-law is staring right now at me from the little box I see up there. She's in New Zealand. And yet, although we are away by a few thousand kilometers, you are instantly connected online. And I try to inspire her. I try to motivate her to attend these sessions whenever I share. And similarly, friends all over do the same thing. So I think, sister, it is well within our means to be spiritually engaged. You don't have to be religious, but you can be spiritually engaged. And there are so many groups in Facebook which allows us to learn, for example, suttas that the brother from India was asking. Every day, somebody would post a short extract of a sutta online that is relevant to our daily activities. And that helps us very much because many people don't have that luxury. So you need someone to do that groundwork for you and post it. I mean, as I talk now, I can tell brother Surya, you can look up Sigalowada, you can look up Digajanu. Those are two very nice suttas which speaks about lay life and how we utilize our resources in lay life. All right?
Sorry. Okay. There's another two questions. Even though time's up, is it okay we take the questions? One from Brother Kolbun Hao. If one feels guilty in selling live fishes as a business model, but use the profit for charity, would that be okay? That's wisdom, no? There's a Chinese saying that all businesses are bad, all businessmen are bad. Does that mean that don't get involved in business?
No. I wouldn't say all businessmen are bad. Some businessmen are bad, but there are a lot of good businessmen as well. So to say that all businessmen are bad is a very wide sweeping overstatement. Many of my Dhamma family members in Johor Bahru are business people. All right. Many of them who are very active in sharing every week are business people. And they are very good people as far as I can see. Now, profession. Coming back to the basic, everything in the Buddha Dhamma returns to the mind. Everything comes back to your rational and your emotional mind, to your manu and to your chitta. Manu being your rational intellectual mind, chitta being your emotional mind. Now, whatever the profession it is, it may not be selling fish, it could be some other activity. And the basic fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves is that I being involved in this profession, does it make me feel guilty? If it makes you feel guilty for whatever reason, then something is wrong. You already know there is a conflict between your chitta, your emotional mind, and your manu, your rational mind. And conflicts will give rise to stress. So we have to do something to solve that problem. This can be, for example, used in the ever asked question on vegetarianism. We have been endlessly asked, discussed, debated about vegetarianism. So I always say, if eating meat makes you feel guilty or unhappy, then stop. Don't be a vegetarian. And of course, another person will argue, even if you are a vegetarian, you're still killing. As long as you live, you're going to kill. So it is, what is our intention? If you are intentionally killing something for fun, then of course, very, very bad. So selling fish, for example, that particular friend, he felt guilty because he feels that as a serious student of the Buddha Dhamma, he should not be doing it. In which case, then I say, yeah, then you should not be doing it because you are obviously having conflicts between chitta, which is your emotional mind, and manu, your rational mind. what you're doing is giving rise to a lot of unwholesome emotions, in which case, please change it. Now, of course, you have people who are business people. And look, in business, you have to make profits. If not, your company is going to close. But there is a reasonably standard margin of profit that is practiced for almost most professions. In the medical line, for example, I can only speak with that because I've been a doctor for 34 years, 40 years. All charges are regulated by governing bodies. So you cannot exceed those charges. If you go below those charges, fine. You can even charge 1 ringgit. That's fine. But you cannot exceed those charges because then that will be considered as profiteering. So there are these guidelines for us to follow. And as long as you follow these guidelines, you know you are doing good. You are earning righteous wealth without breaking the 5 precepts by the strength of your forearm and the sweat of your brow. Then you need not feel guilty because all of us have to earn a living. So there's a sutta for those of you who want references. It's called the Bhikkhuni Sutta. It's a sutta which involves the Venerable Ananda. And it's a conversation between a nun and the Venerable Ananda, in which I'm paraphrasing that this nun says, this Bhikkhuni says, that we aim one day never to kill. Panatipata. But as long as you are living now, you seriously have no choice. You boil water, you kill. You cook your food, you kill. Even if you are a vegetarian, you still have to cook your veggies. You still kill. All right? The definition of panatipata. Okay, our first precept. Okay, apata, panatipata, comes from the same root word as anapanasati, looking at your respiration. Anything which breathes, by the Indian definition, is alive. That's why it's panatipata, apata. Now, technically speaking, everything has respiration. So you're not going to go around saying, I'm not going to boil water, I'm not going to cook my food, I'm not going to do anything. So in the Bhikkhuni Sutta, this nun was asking the Venerable Ananda. And the Venerable Ananda's reply was very pragmatic. He said, yes, one day I would aim that I will not be involved in any killing at all. But to reach that day, to attain that state, which is not to be reborn, for now, there is no choice. For survival, for food, we have to be involved in killing. And of course, the examples go on in the sutta to various things involved. So I think that if you are using business as an example, I think that as long as you are not cheating people, not harming people, you are selling things within the standard margin of profitability, you're doing good job by giving your employees decent income, food on their table, etc., you're actually doing a lot of good. And I do not think that a good businessman cannot be a good student of the Buddha Dhamma. And we have given you examples, locally, Li Ka-shing, internationally, Chakfini, of people who are very successful businessmen who have also done a lot of good to communities. Okay? So you can be a very good businessman, I'm sure. I think probably Brother Huat Chai, who is also here, will be able to share more because he's more in the business sector in contrast to me, who has been stuck in the medical field for all these years. So I'm sure that this can be the basis of even another talk. Can a successful businessman be a successful Buddha Dhamma practitioner? Okay, my answer is, of course, yes, it can be done. All right, it's all in your attitude. It's all in your intentions. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Punna. I think you have also answered Brother Jean's question at the same time about in business, there's win and lose situation, how to deal with that in practice. So let's all have a group photo before we end the day. Can everyone kindly switch on their videos and we'll do a screenshot for everyone. Okay, let's start with the first screen. Okay, proceed to the next screen. I have Call JK up to Jilin, Philip Chai, Catherine, Caroline Sia, Bay. Can you please on your videos? Xin chào. Brother Alex. Sister Karen Jesslyn, Ang Li Huat, Cindy Yin, Diana Gadot. Okay, I think some of them are maybe not here. Okay, let's take a screenshot now. And okay, just these two screens. So with that, thank you very much, Dr. Punna Wong, for your very practical sharing. And looking forward to seeing everyone on the 10th of August, where we will have on Monday night, where we will have Deepak Anand from India sharing with us about his his discovery of where the Buddha cut his hair. Okay, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Don't know why I cannot turn on my screen.
It's all right, Jesslyn. Fine, no problem.
Dr. Wong, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Bye.
Bye.
Sadhu. Thank you, Dr. Wong. Thank you very much, Dr. Wong.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Sadhu. Thank you for the talk. Sadhu. Sadhu.